All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN for Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on?
What's happening? Mail it in Friday. We love it.
And with good vibes, Hazy B, I would imagine, after the Leafs' performance last night, you've kind of gotten out of your stupor, much like the Leafs did.
I think so, yeah.
He's been crabby the last couple of days.
He has not been at his best.
I've been holding people accountable. Like that's,
what it is?
I think I have a civic duty to do that. I'm trying to keep people accountable. That's how I operate here.
Now all of a sudden you're the barometer, right?
That's right. I'm Mr. Accountability. I'm a genius, right? I got a funky middle name. There's a lot.
Look, I told you yesterday with Festchuk, I'm like, the only problem I have is, and when you get negative material, there's no other way around it. It's just not good. But what I can't do anymore is, and right or wrong, if they lose 3 games and they're in first place, I can't go back during the regular season and say these are the guys that never get it done in the playoffs. That is one avenue that I've waved goodbye to. I've gone down that road, and that ship is
gone. We're not going to address how the regular season could apply to future playoff success or failure. That's what you're establishing this week?
Well, that's what even the fans come out to me and they're like, see, the 3-game loss, they're in first place in their division. Like, I told you these were the guys, and it's like, William Nylander, settle down.
Well, I guess it was kind of an Aaron Rodgers play from Willie, right?
Dude, it absolutely was.
Everyone relaxed. It's all good. We're going to figure it out. But if you're going to play that game, if you're going to say what Willie said,
better back it up, man.
You better back it up. And what I will give a ton of credit to, William Nylander backed it up last night, and Austin Matthews backed it up last night, and that was the difference. Was the 2 highest paid players. I don't know if they're the 2 most important players. I think Matthews certainly would be in that group. I think Marner's in there, Willie, Joseph Woll, Jake McCabe had a great night, Chris Tanev, etc. But I guess they put their money where their mouth was. That's kind of what it was last night. Like, it was, they needed those 2 guys because the game was in peril. Like, the points were in peril. Like, Matthews ties it up.
It wasn't that promising. I mean, they were down.
No, it didn't look great at times.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you're chasing the game with 5 minutes left in the game. They've had chances. There were chances at both ends. I had to go back and watch the game, obviously, but I thought it was a good game. Both teams could
thoroughly entertaining game. Yeah, always more fun when there's lead changes, and this is what we've seen a lot over the 9 years, is that type of behavior and that type of, I guess, game playing out. Like, how often have we seen that in the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era? Heroics in the third period. Like last year, Matthews did that 10 times, where he just said, screw it, jump on my back in the third, I'm going to score, we're going to go to overtime, and we're going to close it. They did that so many times last year. And I think that's what was refreshing, was it did have a bit of a throwback vibe to it that, no lead was safe if you're New Jersey, because 34 was chugging and Willie was chugging, and I thought Marner played well. I thought Domi had a good night, and the Leafs just kept plugging along and pushed it to overtime, and all of a sudden the losing streak comes to an end. And it had to last night. Yeah, it had to. You can't go 4 in a row. Montreal won again in Dallas last night.
Dude, they're on fire, man.
They're on fire.
The Montreal Canadiens are on fire. You see how much fun they're having after the game, the high fives with the coaches. Like, I don't know where they got this goalie from. I never heard of the guy, but he's dynamite. Like, they're awesome right now.
4-0.
Yeah,
he's
guy doesn't lose.
But I like that they're not, like, he's not starting every night, right? Like, they're giving him, like, I would be shocked if he plays tomorrow. I think you play Montembeault tomorrow. Like, to me, I think he's their guy. But it just, it's a great story. I think the Canadiens, early in the season, it looked awful for them. And now it looks amazing. I still think they're somewhere in the middle, personally. That's just how I feel about them. I feel they're somewhere in the middle of a team that's turned the corner out of a rebuild heading north, put it that way. Because, the Hudson kid's a player. Like, he's a flat-out player. And I think I'd love to see what he's going to look like with 200 games under his belt. Have they found, like, Montembeault's their one? He's a good goaltender. If this is their goalie of the future that played last night, Like, he looks like a nice goaltender. I think it's kind of like the kid in Ottawa.
Marilainen and Dobish, man, the two of them.
It's still early on. You don't know what they are. Like,
what the hell's going on with the other guy in Ottawa? Is it with the pink scarf, the $1,000 scarf? Does he ever play? Honestly, what is he putting his gear on or what?
Yes, apparently. So, yes, he's been skating, and I think he's closer than not. Like, put it this way, he's closer to playing. That's what I hear. I don't know. Again, the pink scarf, the $1,000 scarf. I guarantee you that is $1,000. Dude,
I undersold it. That thing's probably $4,500. That pink scarf he wears. Yeah,
no question, man. He's making money. He's making $8.5 million for the next 4 years.
Yeah. But
my other takeaway around from league wide last night was that's check please for JT Miller. I think that's probably it for him.
You think so, eh?
I really do. I thought it was going to be like him and Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, Jimmy Rutherford sit down and iron it out, and we're a good team with all of us. But watching his body language in the presser after, I was like, that's a guy who's decided he's moving on. And that's what it looks like to me. Like, I don't think Jimmy's going to.
It certainly does, man. And it sounds like it. You know, he had a weird presser earlier in the day, or I guess after the last game. And certainly last night, the same thing. And he didn't play a lot. You know, on the 4-1 goal, that was basically all him. And it's not just JT Miller. Again, they can't win at home. They got real issues at home. They thought they straightened it out last week when they beat the Leafs and played well. Then they got pumped by Winnipeg. And now LA got him badly last night. But, yes, Miller looks like he's moping around. Rick Tocchet looked like last night he's kind of had enough of it. And it's got a Jimmy Butler vibe. Jimmy Butler.
It's a distraction.
Miller.
So how long do you want it to go on for?
Wow.
And I've been around scenarios where guys have made it clear they want it out. Like, I played in Hartford, and Brendan Shanahan wanted to go to Detroit, and that was quick.
Yeah.
It was gone the next day. But when you let it linger like this, you guys get moping around.
They can save their season. That's the crazy thing. The West is so top-heavy.
The spot is available
exactly.
for them. It is, because it's really, I looked at it today. It's Vancouver, Calgary, and St. Louis. That for that one spot, really. And, the rest are kind of cemented in. And Seattle's like 6 points back of those three. So I think it's those three fighting for one spot. On paper, Vancouver is the best team out of the three of them. And I think St. Louis, I think Jimmy Montz might have something going there, though. This St. Louis team won't go away.
They're hovering.
And it's the same thing. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah, Utah's 5 out, Anaheim, Seattle. Like, that's you got it on the nose. I mean, it's been established that there's the second wild card spot is available, and it's Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis. And that's the thing about this, where if you're in Vancouver and you're reeling – and LA beats up on you, and you lose to Winnipeg, and they've had issues scoring, and Demko has been pretty inconsistent when he's played.
Yep.
This is you got to do something to salvage your season, and I don't know what hurts is that you could be selling JT Miller for 50 cents on the dollar here, and he's got some control based on his contract in terms of where he's going to go, what he wants. But I also believe that Jim Rutherford has enough pull and respect in the league that he could get a pretty good deal out of him. GMs aren't going to take advantage of Jim Rutherford. He's not going to allow it.
Saying, I'll give you a seventh rounder.
Right,
for
they're
him.
not just going to dump him to dump him. They would get a deal for JT Miller. It just may not be as good as it should be when he's playing at his best. He's a truly impact player in the league.
Hell of a player. I would love, in a candid moment to know what the whole issue is. And we might never know. You might be 2 years from now. I know there's lots of rumors and everybody who thinks they know. I don't know. I can't trust everybody who thinks that they say, I saw this, and look at the body language there, and look at Pettersson's reaction to this, and you've got a lot of forensic experts on Twitter trying to break it all down. To me, I think it's, if you have to move away from the player, it sucks because he's a hell of a player. You're right. I don't know if you get the same player back. If there's a 1-for-1 trade out there, who is it? Like everyone is Zibanejad for JT Miller. I don't know. Like I think Miller's a better player than Zibanejad, but Zibanejad's a top-tier player too. He's a number one center.
What if the Jersey Devils were willing to give up their captain for him?
Oh, I don't know.
Nico Hischier, is that what you're saying?
Hischier's a good
for
player,
Miller?
Man. Yeah.
Isher's
You're
been
just
pretty
talking
good.
size.
He's been pretty good. But
No, I'm just saying, like, what if a team like the Devils called up and they said they wanted to get a bigger guy?
I could see that. I mean,
that's
I don't know
the
about
kind of
Isher
trade you're looking at.
necessarily.
I don't know if Jersey would even want to contemplate doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that just kind of came out of left field. You made me think about that, but I don't know. I think it's more, you're looking at two teams that need a change. That's probably what you've got 5 or 6 teams in that. He's not going to Chicago.
No, he's not going to.
No.
He's not going to just get dumped to a bad
Some
team.
teams are looking at it saying, what's going to bite is some team that thinks JT Miller could put us over the top. That's what would need to happen.
So you're saying the team. What about the team here?
Well, it would depend on what's going the other way. That's the thing.
Obviously.
That's what makes it.
Yeah, you'd be getting into a Joe from the Bridge type of package.
Okay, let me.
Joe from the Bridge package is Nick Robertson, Philippe Myers of first to Vancouver for JT Miller.
Yeah,
that's too rich for Joe
table.
from the Bridge. It's giving away the rights to Denny Malgin and a third rounder, and that should we'll call it square right there, right? Like something like that.
Yeah,
that's
you're right.
a Joe from the Bridge.
O's option was actually too lopsided
rich, yeah,
in favor
too
of Vancouver, so you couldn't do that. We'd have to kind of move the pieces around a little bit. But it does seem like it should happen now. It's got to happen. Crazier things have happened, though, in sports where you prepare for it and then it just doesn't take place because they don't get the deal or whatever. But I will say, if it ends up happening, the spotlight will be on Miller because once you get out, I don't know if he's injured or banged up. He looks like he's laboring at times. But if you're trying to get out, you get out, then you better snap out of it wherever you go next, right? You better revitalize your career. And conversely, Elias Pettersson better be a player when JT Miller goes.
No, by far your best player.
A superstar. Because that guy isn't pulling his weight either. I mean, nowhere close to it for the money.
And you say that that's the first guy you go to saying, if that was the problem, that was kind of bothering you every day, it's gone. So let's see what you got there, bud.
Top line, I'm playing you 23 minutes tonight. You better be ready to play. And you better start putting up some numbers because they need them. They need their superstar players. Because there's an opportunity to salvage the season and still make the playoffs.
Dude, I said it yesterday, Hayes. I hate it for the organization. I hate it for the fan base. How they had last year, and it's like, okay, you got Talk in there. He wins Coach of the Year, and the team's dialed in, and you take Edmonton to the brink, and then all of a sudden it turns into a gong show. It's just, it's like you got to be thinking if you're a Canucks fan, like, what, we can't have nice things? We can't have a good team for 10 years?
It sucks.
Or 5 years even?
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's just
it's been regression instead of
they had a 2 or 3 year gong show leading up to last year, and they finally turn it around, and now what? We get this? I'd be like, God almighty.
Well, here's something I'll say. If they make the playoffs, do you give Quinn Hughes some Hart Trophy votes? 100%.
Absolutely.
Like this guy, this is the only guy that's he's worth the price of admission every night. He scored that goal last night. You're like, okay, that's just
plays every night, puts up numbers. The guy's unreal. I mean, there's the updated odds courtesy of FanDuel. McKinnon,
so 7th right now.
McDavid, Draisaitl, Hellebuck, Kaprizov, Kucherov, Quinn Hughes.
Look at McDavid. He shot up there, didn't he, Hayes?
I'll tell you what.
Old Hayes. Last night, I gotta say.
Old Jesus.
The last 2 nights, he's been gross. I don't know if you've watched.
It's great. It's great because this guy here. No, I'd like to address it.
Let me address something quickly. I want to adjust my numbers. 2%. I'm going up to 2%.
That was Jerry's on Wednesday. You said 1%.
I said
and
1%.
his head almost blew off his body.
I said it was insulting. It was insulting.
I'm going to double it. I'm doubling it in 2 days. I think that's actually really kind of me moving the goalpost here. I give McDavid a 2% chance of winning the Hart.
You said on Wednesday, and then I don't know if you watched him play Wednesday night.
Oh, he was unbelievable.
And then last night was gross too.
They spotted them a 3-0 lead in Colorado on a back-to-back. And then McDavid and Draisaitl said, that's actually not going to happen. We'll just go ahead and win this
enough.
thing. In reg, which is also impressive. I mean, listen, Edmonton he looks good. McDavid looks good. I like what I'm seeing.
2% Hayes. I love it.
I'm up to 2%. 2% milk. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe it'll be cream. It'll be 10% by the end of next week. I'm going to adjust my numbers as I see fit. But listen, the guy's—he's the best player in the world, but based on his standard, it hasn't been the greatest year. But I also would say, I shouldn't say it hasn't been the greatest year. It's been a great year, but Draisaitl, I still think, has been more valuable to that team.
I agree.
With how great McDavid's been the last 2 games. He missed 5, and Draisaitl was incredible. Draisaitl leads the league in points, or in goals. He's right there in points. He's got all these game winners and first goals in games, lead changing, tie, all these like really important statistics that are important for teams. Draisaitl's driving that. So I'm not surprised that McDavid, Draisaitl are in the hunt. McKinnon's in the hunt. Hughes should be in the hunt. Hellebuck, I don't know what Hellebuck did to drop.
Yeah.
What did Hellebuck do in the last 2 days?
Just had a 2-1 win last night on the road. Like it just.
Why are his odds lower
home.
now? All of a sudden on FanDuel. What did Hellebuck do to hurt his case?
Somebody was thinking the same thing as you about McDavid and said, "All right, I'll double up my I'll add it to 3%."
I better be careful here with McDavid. He's on a bit of a heater.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it's interesting. I think it was James Myrtle who was tweeting about Austin Matthews and can he still chase like 50 goals on the season, which I think is rich. But James said based on his pace from a year ago, I think he did the math and it could get up to like 48 on the season. Ever since he came back the second time, the guy's scoring basically every night. And you like what I was impressed with last night. For starters, he's had 2 goals that are eerily similar this week. The Ottinger goal against Dallas, and then the goal last night on Markstrom where he comes down the same wing, the off wing, and goes under the bar on mutants in net. Like Ottinger and Markstrom are massive guys. But that second goal, like I thought the drive from the blue line, like the power, he looked like himself. He looked the way he reacts to scoring goals, he looks like himself. That is everything that the Leafs have needed. Like in terms of breaking through offensively, it always starts with the one guy. Like he's at the top of the pyramid and then everything else filters in appropriately. Like look at this goal. He takes off down the wing. He looked great last night. Like
crazy
Matthews
some of
great.
these
He's scoring great
zone,
goals again.
Some of these defensive, like you must be watching the tape if you kind of coach defense or defensive systems, and like Jack Hughes last night was left wide open by himself in front of the net. Austin Matthews is allowed to wheel right down Main Street with 2 minutes left or whatever the hell the clock is.
Yeah, exactly.
Connor McDavid left wide open in front of the net. Like, are these guys insane out there? Like, I know you talk to modern day players. They're like, yeah, it's the game's kind of bizarre. It like happens so fast and this and that, but that would drive you. Like, imagine leaving Connor McDavid around the front of the net untouched, or Jack Hughes, or.
And that's the nightly thing you get from. And you get it from coaches and players because I've talked to them on the road. It's just like, the game's so fast. You think you're going one way and all of a sudden it goes the other way. Like we heard Jake Allen. What was that, Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Jake Allen said, he goes, like, the game is chaos. He goes, it's chaos, and you're trying to catch up to it. That's the one thing. The pace of the game is so high. That's why you don't see a lot of the physicality because guys circle and turn and it's we used to you were taught finish your check, stop on pucks. They don't stop on pucks anymore. They circle. They keep their speed going, right? So the details of the game are a lot different now, but that's where the big blunders come. Like I'm watching that Jack Hughes goal. Like everyone's going north. All of a sudden the puck goes south, and he's there by himself. He had he had 2 seconds, which is a lifetime in real time in hockey. He had 2 seconds to make a play.
Especially a guy like that who will take the 2 seconds, right?
Yes.
Like you put a fourth liner, that guy turns and whacks. And it's
exactly.
Dude, it's a hack and whack fest.
Just chops
hack.
at it.
It's just, and then turns around and goes, damn, I had some time there.
Yeah.
But you put a superstar, and 2 seconds for him is 10 seconds for the average player.
Yeah.
But you're right in terms of like even Willie's goal, and I know 3-on-3 is a totally different beast. But bad change. There's William Nylander who gets more breakaways than anyone in the league.
Oh yeah, like that play there, like the defenseman, like
What do you
William
do? Mitch
Nylander's
Marner's got
coming.
the puck.
Yeah,
Who do
and
you think
I'm
has
just
the
going to
puck?
change here, Coach. I'm just going to change here. Nothing to see here.
Had a change, and both guys were wide. Like, that's the weirdest part is both
Look at
guys
this guy.
were wide
See you
outside
later.
the
I'm
dots.
And
Like,
he
outside
saw
the dots.
Nylander come over the boards.
Right.
Like, Nylander came over the boards right in front of him, and he was like, I'm going to get off here, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. The change on that side was a problem because the guy jumped. The guy coming off just chewed a minus. The guy jumping
no
on the ice.
kidding.
The
Can you
worst.
imagine
on the
chewing
ice,
on that?
You just
like
jump
all
on
you're
it, you're
doing,
chasing him down.
I'll never forget the worst minus chewing of all time was I chewed 2 on empty net breakaways. The same player changed both times when a guy was on a breakaway with an empty net, and I skated on to watch it. I've never wanted to wrap my stick around a teammate's
it's so
head.
gross. I guess you have to go on the ice, right? You can't say, no, I'm not.
Well,
gonna
you
take
can't
a
sit
change.
up there and look at the guy and say, am I really going to chew on this right now? But
Yeah.
twice. And then the coach is in hero mode. I pull the goalie again. Same guy did it, and I'm like,
No
you
way.
got to be jobbing.
Did he do
me
the
right.
dive over the boards to get off the ice?
He felt no shame.
None.
No, you just
Click
keep
the
skating.
door open, one leg
Click
at a time.
the door and not a peep from anybody. I was like, this is why we suck.
Yeah, just keep skating.
Yeah, that's uncalled for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun game, and tomorrow's going to be a blast, man. Like I think I was trying to think of it earlier today. Like the last time, I know the Leafs and Habs open the season every year, and there's meaning to that because it's opening night. But there isn't in terms of the standings or in terms of importance long term. I don't even think during obviously the playoff series would be the example, clearly, but that was the playoffs, and it's different than the regular season. I don't remember during the regular season in that Canadian bubble ever having any games against the Habs that really felt meaningful because the Leafs were going where they were going, and the Habs were probably going to get in based on a formality of the way the playoffs were going to work out. This feels like the biggest regular season game between the Leafs and the Habs I can think of in maybe a decade. Like I couldn't think of another example. And I'd be curious if Leafs or Habs fans want to tweet in. Go ahead, at Hayes TSN, at OverDrive 1050. If you can think of a specific date over the last decade where a game felt bigger than the one tomorrow night.
Outside of that playoff series.
Outside of the playoffs, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the
Right.
playoffs goes without saying. The
Yes.
playoffs are different. I'm talking regular season.
If you're just talking like juice, it's been a long time.
It's been a
where,
long
like,
time
Yeah.
since these two
Meaningful
teams had a
hockey.
game like that.
Meaningful hockey, right? That's what it is.
Exactly.
Meaningful hockey in mid-January where
Like, there's
it's
nothing better. I can say this as
Dude.
a guy from Toronto. There's nothing better than Leafs Habs on a Saturday night. It is the
No,
greatest
it
thing.
starts tomorrow at 10 a.m. walking around Montreal. I remember
Yes.
walking to the rink, and it's like, this place is juiced up and cranked up already. It's
You
the
can
best.
feel it, man. You
Yeah.
can feel it. It's
One of the favorite
separates.
things, like, it's regular season games, not that big a deal. I scored an overtime goal against Jose Theodore on Saturday night in Montreal. It was one of my favorite things I've ever done.
Can't beat that.
Overtime, just ripped it under the bar. I'm like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Saturday night in Montreal, overtime. Joe,
'Cause
try to find the goal.
You
if
got to
can.
find
Go
that
down
goal.
memory lane.
Because
Need to
there's
see
7,000 Leaf fans in there, 15,000 plus Habs fans that are going crazy.
Dude, you know what?
Yeah.
Like Montreal, like just their warm up, the vibe. Like it's crazy. It's a
Yeah.
crazy
It's a
cool
great
scene
rink,
there.
great
man.
setting.
Great
It
spot.
really is. Yeah, I mean, I love that building. There's an energy to it. And I think, that team's playing with a lot of confidence, and they seem to be playing connected, and their young guys have, they can score. Like they're finding the back of the net. Like I think, the power play's kind of woken up a little bit. Like that's the thing. Their special teams were really struggling at the start of the year. And then, you had Laine come back, and he kind of – actually, you could probably circle when Laine came back, this team changed a little bit.
Big time,
Right?
man. He's up to 10 goals, and
Dude,
Kirby
when you get
Doc's
that
been
one
really good.
Yeah, when you get that strike offense, like that quick strike where you just put it on the guy's tape and he can rip it into the net other than Cole Caulfield, makes a big difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Caulfield's going to score 40-plus if he stays healthy. Like, he's already up to 24, I believe, in the year. But they're getting depth. That's been a big part of the conversation out of Montreal is they're rolling 4 lines. Armia was really good last night. They've got depth. And Hudson's been great, and their goaltending's been good. Like, it's just a great combination, top to bottom. And if you're the Leafs, you've owned this. Again, playoffs, notwithstanding, which of course is the most important detail of it all, what happened in 21 and them up 3-1. I'm not looking past that. But if you look over the last 9 years of the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era, the Leafs have been the dominant force, and they've been the better team, and they've rolled in there and won big. And now the shoe's not on the other foot because the Leafs are still better, and the Leafs are higher in the standings, and the Leafs have higher expectations. But I think it's a big opportunity for Craig Berube and the Leafs to go in there and basically snap out of it and say, we're not letting you run over us here.
Yeah,
like, we know you're red hot,
boys.
But the
Party's
big boys
over.
are in town, and we're gonna take you out. But I expect a really good game tomorrow. I think it's gonna be a great game. Mike Johnson will join us later this afternoon. Dear Hazy V coming up. We got Farhan Lalji coming up. Farhan obviously has been in Vancouver covering the Canucks forever. I swear every question asked to JT Miller yesterday was from Farhan. Every single one was
He goes
Farhan.
at him, though. Good for him.
Well, I got the
Totally
sense
appropriate
that,
questions.
No
Totally.
kidding. And I got the sense that he recognized nobody else wanted to ask him, so I
Right.
got to do it. And he did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll play that for you for reference, and we'll catch up with Farhan a little bit later in the hour. Luke's back. Al's brother's back. It's go time today.
Wow.
I can feel winners. Today at 6 o'clock. It has to happen because last week was really one of the darker and lower moments in the history of this program. It was pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic.
1-1.
Score's 1-1. Yeah, it's 1-1 going into the
Doogie
second
did a great
period.
job of generating buzz. That's
Doogie's
good
on
stuff,
fire,
Doogie.
man. Doogie is a man on a mission to make sure that everything's cracking. So we'll get to that a little bit later on this afternoon. And we're tracking Nick Taylor at the Amex, man. On FanDuel, he's the betting favorite to win this thing. He's red hot again today. I think he's 2 shots off the lead last time I checked.
Dude.
Nick Taylor is
Back to
absolutely
back,
on
Nicky?
fire.
I love it.
He's on fire. So we're tracking our guy Nick Taylor as well out in Palm Springs. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Farhan Lalji later in the hour. NFL picks coming up. Raptors in action tonight on the road. And Blue Jays are picking up some of that international pool money.
Why? Why bother? He's going to sign with the Dodgers.
Honestly, call me crazy. I don't see why you make this move. I know they've got all the reporters coming out saying it doesn't mean anything. They don't know that Sasaki's going to accept their offer. Why would you make a move like they did today, including bringing in a player in Miles Straw who's got a couple years left on his deal and basically can't play? So that it's a salary dump for Cleveland for them to get some of the international pool money. Why would you do that unless you feel 99% sure this guy's going to take that money? And it's like I don't know, man. This one feels a little bit different to me. I'm back on the private plane watch. Give me some private plane material.
Really?
I'm looking for it here.
Wow.
Well,
I
it's
just
gonna
don't know
get to a point.
why would you make this play if you don't know that it's going to Sasaki?
I get it. And sooner or later, somebody's going to look at the Dodgers and be like, there's enough big dogs here. Maybe I want to be a big dog somewhere else.
Exactly.
Do I expect him to still say I'm signing with the Dodgers? Yes, I do. I do, because everyone else does. Everyone else does.
Reasonable. I got you. I hear you. But I think that point you made is an important one because the reports are out today that the Padres have been told they're out.
Yes, that's correct.
Like it sounds like it's Dodgers or Blue Jays for a Japanese star. Right? We're back in the saddle again. Here we go again.
But let me just confirm this. He's a star pitcher, right?
Yes, he's a starting pitcher. He throws heat and get up high 90s. He throws some junk, nasty stuff.
Boy,
you know,
it'd be nice to have him.
It's difficult to really know exactly how
some junk and nasty stuff.
It's the standard go-to. Like I haven't seen him pitch a live bullpen.
It was
or
the
something.
standard report. I appreciate the standard. He throws some just absolute smoke, and he can also mix it up and throw some nasty junk.
Got some nasty stuff.
Exactly. That's a Harry Doyle line, right? Like that's what Harry would say.
R.I.P., brother.
R.I.P. Bob Uecker and Harry Doyle.
Yeah.
But I think what you said about him trying to establish superstardom, you're not getting that with the Dodgers.
Dude,
like,
not even close.
Not even close.
You're probably fourth or fifth in line.
At best. Now, I understand California, the Dodgers winning closer to Japan, closer to the time zone. Like, there's a lot that goes into it that I understand that Toronto just can't compete with. But what they can compete with is, hey, you come here, you're the guy. Like we'll give you whatever you need to be a superstar and a rock star. So we'll see. I mean, listen, what did George Bush famously say?
Fool me
once, shame on.
We got to play that.
we got to
play that because, like, shame on you.
Shame on you, or well, you get fooled, you can't get fooled again.
Point is, you can't get fooled again.
There's an old saying in Tennessee. I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
I forgot how long he hesitated.
Dude,
I forgot about
that. That is not one of those, like, although I butchered, I think, the Wayne Gretzky. I've butchered hard work beats skill, but that's a pretty standard saying. Like
that guy's hamster was Usain bolting it, dude.
He had a seizure after "Fool Me Once."
Fool me once.
And it's right after that, it's "Shame on Me."
Right. And when you're the
president,
it's
actually "Fool me once, shame on you."
Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That's the saying, and he knew it. Like, he knew he was in a blender. He's like, I'm gone. I can't get it back.
And then he tossed out, "You don't be fooled again."
Right. Well, I'm George Bush when it comes to Sasaki here. Just because of this deal today, I don't see why you take on all that money, and because again, if they did that a month ago, before everything opened, and they kind of knew where they stood or whatever, and it was like, hey, we want to have all of our ducks in line here, and we're going to go in full bore. The window's open. It's open. Like, he can sign. They know who he is. He's been to Toronto, and now they're acquiring this international pool money, or bonus pool money. I'm going George Bush on this one.
Let's fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Play the whole thing.
The whole thing.
We got to hear the whole thing.
It's
one of the great clips ever.
There's an old saying in Tennessee. I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
It's an old saying in Tennessee. Even the way it starts, it's so ignorant. There's an old
does anyone
saying
know
in
the
Tennessee.
context of what he was talking?
Texas.
Like, what was
I don't
that
know
for?
what he was talking about. I don't.
Yeah,
who knows? Maybe
so
chasing
funny.
superstar Japanese pitchers. I don't know what he was talking about. All right, Farhan Lalji's coming up. I wonder if the Vancouver Canucks could apply that George Bushism to what's going on with JT Miller and Pettersson and the Canucks. They got blown out last night at home against the LA Kings, and it's ugly. It's ugly. It's loud. It's dramatic. It's soap opera-like. There's a lot going on out there. So we'll catch up with Farhan, get his take on all this. Mike Johnson coming up on the Leaf win last night. If he can think of a more important regular season game than Leafs Habs tomorrow night in terms of that rivalry over the last decade, we'll catch up with Johnny, and NFL picks still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Farhan Lalji coming up here in a moment. We've got Mike Johnson still to come a little bit later this afternoon, but it is time for you to tell us where Al's brother is hiding this week. Call us right now at 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. The first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see the Leafs play the Lightning next Monday. All right? I think we all know where he is. You guys want to shout it out? Where is Al's brother? He's been there all week.
He's at McAlpine Ford in Aurora. I was there today. I saw him.
That's right. McAlpine Ford in Aurora.
Yeah.
Al's
Greatest
brother.
place I've ever. Nicest people, too. It's not just about
awesome
business.
spot. Al's
Dude,
brother,
it's the
very
best.
comfortable in there, he said. All
Exactly.
week. Very comfortable in
The
there.
best spot.
So you had another chance to find Al's brother and win Leaf tickets to start the week next week right here on Overdrive. So brought to you by our friends at McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you.
Was he just sitting there? Like, you walk in and he's just sitting there? Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't they be like, hey, what the
When
hell
I
are you
walked
doing?
in, he was there. He was signing autographs and stuff.
Man of the people.
He is a man of the people. I was downtown last night, and everyone's like, where's Al's brother? What's Al's brother doing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't keep track of him. He's either on a cruise or he's in his basement. That's basically it.
Have people stopped yelling Hayes is a fraud? Like, I think it's
it comes
played
and
out.
goes. It's still around a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere close to where it was last spring, last summer.
I'm
Dying
trying to
down
remember.
a little bit, thankfully.
I'm trying to remember. There was an NHL player. I was doing a game. I forgot to tell you guys this. I was doing a game, and a guy like leaned over and was like, "Hayes is a fraud," and I was like, "What?"
All right, try to remember that. Maybe it was JT Miller. We got Farhan on the line. It could have been JT Miller. His headspace, it doesn't feel like it's really in the game right now.
It might be.
Here's Farhan Lalji from Vancouver. Farhan, give us a little mood meter out there in Vancouver. How's the city reacting to the way the Canucks are playing right now?
Well, it's a beautiful sunny day, and how dare people suggest you're a fraud, Brian? Like,
Thank you.
That's offensive to me.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the support.
Hey, and O-Dog, do me a favor, please. Can you please turn off your email auto message? Because every time I send somebody to TSN Hockey, I get a bounce back from Jeff O'Neill saying I will no longer be checking this account.
Farhan, I had the dumbest email of life, and I hated spelling it out to people, so I just changed it to something separate. And somebody told me the only way to switch over is to write that email. Once you send one to the other one, it says this is no longer functioning. So you got to deal with it, bud. I don't know what else to tell you.
Dude, every day I send something out. You're the only person that replies. Although now with the Canucks playing this poorly, I get a lot of requests. My goodness, like watching this team, it is theater. It's an adventure on so many levels, and for all the wrong reasons, right? I mean, you guys, like Noodles and O-Dog, you guys are professional athletes. Like, what's the most offensive thing I could accuse you of? You were professional athletes, but you're always pros in my heart. What would be the worst thing I could accuse you of?
Lack of heart, maybe? Like, something
like a dressing room problem.
Like, yeah.
Well, like the word that people have said to me before is don't ever tell an athlete they've quit.
Yeah,
and the Canucks look like they quit last night. And they've looked like that in last games where you score a couple of goals on them and then everything around them sets in and they just have zero answer, zero response, zero pushback. This is a team that looks like they've quit. I'm not saying they've quit on their coach. This is not a Rick Tocchet indictment. I think Tocchet's done a great job, and and he's as much a victim of what's going on around him. But when you look at what's happened with this team and the storylines and the narratives around it, not a lot has changed in the last 2 to 3 weeks from when the Pettersson-Miller conversation began to rear its ugly head again. What's changed, or it's really what hasn't changed, they've gotten no better, right? Like, they haven't done anything to stop that conversation. So people keep talking about it because they've done nothing. I mean, JT Miller missed 10 games. He's played in 17 games since, and he's scored in one of those 17 games. It's, when you look at how this team is playing, Pettersson gives us a few moments here and there. The one guy that you can count on night in and night out is Quinn Hughes, who I still think is playing at a Hart Trophy level, not just a Norris Trophy level, but the rest of them look like they've checked out, and that's as big an indictment as I can offer.
Well, Farhan, it seems like the JT Miller-Pettersson situation is now having an effect on everything, and it's just like, you got to ask yourself, we were talking about at the beginning of the show, like, how did we get here? Like, how did they go from last year being so great, and they finally turned things around, and the fan base has got to be thinking, we got our coach, our players are putting, we're all dialed in, we've got Quinn Hughes and Demko and JT Miller and Pettersson, and then all of a sudden this year, everything's gone to hell in a handbasket again. Like, how did it get to this point? Like, what happened between these two guys?
Yeah, and I don't know how much of it truly is their relationship that's led to this. Like, obviously there's been some of that, but it's been magnified and taken so far out of proportion because they both played so poorly, right? Like, it's not like this is a 3-year-old story, right? And potentially even longer when you hear Brad Richardson's comments of, think of how long ago he was actually in the room with the Canucks. So I don't know that their relationship is any worse than it was 3 or 4 years ago. I just think they're playing so poorly that it's now come back up to the forefront. And certainly they've handled it poorly, and the organization as a whole, from a communication standpoint, has handled it really poorly, right? The strategy around it is baffling, to the point where they're actually legitimately looking at moving one of these guys, and the general manager away from the conversation. Like, no one has shut this down. And 2.5 weeks ago when he spoke when Patrick Allvin spoke to Ian McIntyre, and they said, yeah, like all things are on the table. We're looking at all of it. And, you know, the leaks have happened now, and nobody can run from it. It's just too big of an elephant in the room. So I don't know that particular issue got us here. I just think these two players playing so poorly have got us here. So obviously JT is dealing with a number of different issues. In the case of Pettersson, this goes back to last year's All-Star game. He came out of the All-Star game a completely different player and has just not been able to find his game. First, it was, well, the contract is creating too much noise. Then he signs the contract and he just hasn't lived up to the contract, so that's creating its own noise. So there's just so many layers to it. They've had the injuries. There's been a bit of a market correction in terms of, you know, their PDO and their finishing rate and all of those types of things. And everything that went right for this group a year ago and last training camp going into it, Jim Rutherford said, so much has to go right for us to make the playoffs. And he was right. And now all of that has gone wrong, and this is the result.
So, Farhan, we were talking before you came on about you. It seemed like you were the only one that was asking some tough questions, or at least asking some honest questions last night in the scrum. Like, did you feel like you were the guy that just had to kind of take the ball and run with it and be a straight shooter with JT Miller?
Yeah, I did. But look, I'll tell you, this market is not what people think it is. This market gets a bad rap. Like, the reality is there's only maybe 4 of us or 3 of us at best that are willing and in position to ask difficult questions. And heck, for me, half the time I'm traveling for football, right? Like, for the Canucks as players to actually think this is a tough market is completely delusional. And I know the national narrative is that it's this bad market. Well, the national insiders set the fire, right, by talking about the fact that, hey, Pettersson and Miller no longer get along again, and then someone's got to ask a couple of tough questions, and then everybody talks about it, and now the market is bad. We got a bunch of young bloggers that are thrilled they've got credentials, and they're not willing to ask difficult questions. Whereas, you know, you've got a couple of us, myself, Jeff Patterson, Patrick Johnson, Thomas Drance, and that might be where it ends, that are willing to ask a difficult question. And so it's when you go back to 10 years ago, I talked to Frankie Corrado about this when he was in the room. Like, there was some big boy journalism around here. Like, Gary Mason was still doing sports. Tony Gallagher, Jason Botchford was alive. There were people that would ask tough questions. So now you get the same volume of media and the same volume of cameras and microphones, but it's an entirely different media landscape. These guys do not know what hard questions and tough journalism is, and they get completely offended and taken aback and blindsided when someone asks a tough question. It's not that difficult to market, guys.
So, Farhan, let me ask you, would you guess, what's the way out of this? Like, would it look from
one
JT
of them is going to have to get moved. One of them is going to have to get moved. That's just.
And I would guess after watching JT Miller last night, it might be him, because it looked like, I don't know, it looked like I've seen guys who are on their way out the door, and that's what it looked like.
Yeah, you're right. And I think if the Canucks had their choice, they would move JT Miller, because he has the ability to completely lighten the room, right, and be the most. Mike Krzyzewski talked about this about Christian Laettner, right? That he has the ability to be the warmest guy in the room when things are going well, and has the ability to burn the house down when it's not. And that's where JT Miller is. And quite frankly, Miller's aware of that, because last year when everything was going great, he actually talked about that hey, we're winning, and that's why everything is going great. And you know, I tried to make the point that usually when things for him are going good or bad, he's always that emotional engine, and he's not that now. And that tells you, to your point, that he probably looks like a guy that's got 1 foot out the door, even though he's got a no trade. But I think if you're the Canucks, it's going to be a lot harder to move the 31-year-old than it is to move the 26-year-old. And where Miller has floored me the most, I always felt that Pettersson had the higher ceiling and the lower floor. And Miller, you know, was kind of in between there, and you could always count on effort and intensity and passion. Well, without that, he's got the same floor as Pettersson. So I think if the Canucks had their choice, they'd prefer to move Miller, but it's going to be a much harder deal to move than Pettersson, who's only 26 and has the higher ceiling.
Yeah, well, we're tracking it across the country, as you know. I think everyone in the hockey world is pretty fascinated by it. And I know you're off to KC. You're going to be at the National Championship game, so safe travels. Enjoy the football, and thanks for doing this today. We appreciate it.
All right, guys, anytime. And Noodles and O-Dog, I would never accuse you two of quitting on Hayes.
There you go.
Farhan, I'd just like to quickly mention, thank you for acknowledging that myself and Noodles were professional athletes and not Brian.
Thank you, Farhan.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. There's Farhan Lalji from Vancouver. He's off to Kansas City.
Yeah.
It's an accurate assessment. I mean, I'm not a
You see that
professional athlete.
screen pic that Farhan they post up for Farhan? I'm sorry, that's 20 years old.
That was an old school one, but he's in good shape, man.
He is.
Farhan's
He
still
looks
great.
He hits
great,
the gym. And,
good style, wears
Yeah.
great clothes.
On
When
fire,
I first went out, like started with TSN, this would have been 14 years ago. I went out with Farhan and Johnny Liu in Edmonton, and those guys were rock stars.
Oh yeah, you
Rock
talk style,
stars.
man. Farhan
Oh,
and John
my God.
Liu are
TSN staple / legends.
yes,
Yeah,
across the board.
It was a gritty night.
Yeah.
Very good.
No
Loved
other
it.
way to put it.
Yeah.
Mike Johnson coming up in the next hour. Leafs Habs tomorrow night. We'll start teeing that up and look back on a Leaf win last night. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.